Welcome to Fearless with Jason Whitlock. I am Jason Whitlock, your host. Happy Labor Day. We're working for you on Labor Day. Steve Kim, Butter, joining me here in studio. We wanted to give you some content to listen to on your 3-day weekend and on the end of your 3-day weekend with Labor Day content focused on the National Football League and the start of the NFL season. It is here. It's not only just Deion season, it's now NFL season. No better time of the year than that. And so we got a handful of NFL topics we'll unpack for you today. Remember, this is on next Monday. This show will be live at 10 a.m. Central Time. Next Monday, a week from today, we are live at 10 a.m. Central Time, only on YouTube and Blaze TV. Make sure you're there with us at 10 a.m. Central next Monday. Steve, Butter, let's jump right into it. The National Football League on Thursday is starting out with an absolute bang and banger game. Baltimore Ravens at the Kansas City Chiefs. Patrick Mahomes versus Lamar Jackson. I don't know if you could start the season off any better. Patrick Mahomes is the biggest star in the National Football League. Lamar Jackson, one of the most intriguing players and the reigning MVP. Obviously, with Mahomes and the Chiefs sitting there with 3 Super Bowls, there's far more pressure on Lamar Jackson and the Ravens going into this game. Steve, what do you expect here? I tend to, the Chiefs have made some interesting moves in terms of trying to upgrade their wide receiver position, adding a little bit more speed. They struggled a little bit. Even though they won the Super Bowl, they struggled a little bit offensively. Who do you think has the bigger game to start the season, Lamar Jackson or Patrick Mahomes?
Well, I'm not so sure it's a make or break for anyone. We're in a 17-game season. And you really don't know much about these teams till about mid-October. But, Jason, I surmise that given the fact that the Chiefs are now back-to-back world champions and Mahomes has already won a few Super Bowls, he's getting into that Montana territory. He is playing with house money because he's still in the thick of his physical and athletic prime. And we spoke about this a couple of weeks ago. Jason, all the pressure now is on Lamar Jackson. Because the MVPs are nice and they're great and they certainly make you an elite player. One day will probably get you in the Hall of Fame. But unfortunately, whether it's fair or not, when it comes to quarterbacks, wins and losses, for whatever reason, it's not a real stat. It matters, and so do Super Bowl trophies. And I almost feel as though if it's a must-win game for either one of these guys, even though it's not, if it is for Lamar Jackson and the Baltimore Ravens.
It certainly would do far more for Lamar Jackson and set a tone for the season if they were able to go into Arrowhead, pull off a victory. I don't really expect it. And here's why I don't expect it. It's because I actually think we're about to see the best version of Patrick Mahomes that we've ever seen. And he's already had some incredible seasons. He's, I think, a 2-time MVP himself. I think we're about to get the ultimate best version of Patrick Mahomes. And the reason I say that, I'm going to connect it to his wife. His wife is out here making these comments about how free she feels and how she's learned how not to care what people think about her. She's somewhat come out of the closet as a Trump supporter. I think that's like a family decision that and I almost think it's an organizational decision by the Kansas City Chiefs. Here was a team a year ago that was defined by Taylor Swift being a fan and dating Travis Kelce. Well, let's look and see what's happened the entire offseason in terms of Harrison Butker, like letting it rip. Hey, I'm a Christian, I'm Catholic, I'm anti-woke, basically. And he's gotten support from the organization, record contract for a kicker. The Chiefs have supported him. There was no rebuke of him. And now I look at Patrick Mahomes' wife, Brittany Mahomes, like, you know what? I don't care what people think. I think Patrick is in a similar mentality. And I think with these new weapons that they have, not just at wide receiver, I'm going to actually, this is the homer in me. Carson Steele, I think, is going to be a hell of a wrinkle. I'm just sorry. I think he's going to be a hell of a wrinkle to what the Chiefs are doing. Ball State running back, undrafted guy, had transferred to UCLA. For those who, got the pet alligator. Anyway, I just think we're going to see a footloose, fancy-free, and Patrick Mahomes on Thursday night is going to show everybody who the real MVP is. It's him, not Lamar Jackson.
So Carson Steele, the second coming of Ed Podolak. That's a white running back reference, by the way. But yeah, so in other words, so your theme is, and I will say this, the new addition that I talk about is the X-Man out of the University of Texas, Xavier, big game, big play worthy. And so based on what you said, they just want to make downfield passing great again. Because here's the reality over what the Kansas City pass offense has actually been post Tyreek Hill. And even the last year of Tyreek Hill, they weren't hitting a lot of vertical shots, believe it or not. They were a lot of underneath passing game, dink and dunk, Travis Kelce, kind of going first down to first down. I've seen a little bit of their preseason. As long as they put Xavier Worthy in positions where he doesn't necessarily have to go against press coverage because he's having some issues there, put him out in motion, he is an absolute burner. He has legitimate 4.2 speed. Probably, and then Hollywood Brown, he gets back. I think he's banged up. For the first time in several years, there's going to be some real threats that could take the top off the defense, and we might see more of what we saw earlier in Patrick Mahomes' run and the occasional 2-yard touchdown run at the goal line by Carson, the White Stallion Steele. There, you happy?
I am. I want to add the other thing that I think Patrick Mahomes is interested in. It's like, hey, how can I enter into the Brady discussion? And he could do that this year.
Yeah.
4th Super Bowl, 3 in a row. And I saw something interesting that I really liked actually from LeBron James. I don't know if you saw this, Steve, but LeBron put out his Mount Rushmore of quarterbacks, and he had Brady number 1. He had Mahomes number 2, Joe Montana 3, and John Elway 4. I think he's premature in putting Patrick Mahomes number 2. I'd put him behind all 3 of those guys. But I actually like his list. I love that he included Elway in that, gave Montana his respect. But I think it's premature to put Mahomes ahead of Joe Montana and even, in my view, John Elway, who I think is the greatest quarterback of all time. I know Brady has clearly the better resume, but I think Patrick Mahomes, with a 3rd straight Super Bowl,
yes,
and a 4th Super Bowl overall, now he starts to enter into the Brady discussion, and I think he wants that.
Jason, I'm going to stick up from a guy that really ruined my childhood when I was a diehard LA fan when they played at the Big A. Cool Joe Montana, I still think's the best ever, but in 88 they won it, in 89 they were dominant, and then in 1990 they lost that heartbreaking game when it looked like they were destined to three-peat. Jason, if Mahomes and the Chiefs go three-peat, I never thought I'd say this, but I think the debate really starts to begin because I figure that Mahomes has at least another 8-9 years with the way they protect these quarterbacks. I'm just telling you, he might actually challenge Brady, maybe not for all-time great status, because, again, that's very subjective, but I don't think 7 Super Bowl wins would now be out of the question. I'm just throwing it out there. He's starting to get in that range where when you start having Mount Rushmores and you have Mahomes in there, I don't think it's as crazy as it was 2-3 years ago.
Yeah, I'm looking. Brady's won back-to-back in 04 and 05. That's it. He no three-peat. He only won it back-to-back once.
Yes.
If he gets a three-peat, that puts him in, again, that's something Brady hasn't done. And now people will quit the whole Michael Jordan, LeBron deal, and they'll move to Tom Brady, Patrick Mahomes. And not that Mahomes cares or thinks anything about this, But in this woke media environment, Patrick Mahomes
geez.
will have half of the right complexion. He'll have half of the right complexion to win that argument with Brady.
Jason, to circle back here, I'll say this. If Mahomes gets the three-peat, because there's still this agenda, in my view, to lift Lamar Jackson over Mahomes for whatever reason. And there's still people who think it's a debate. If the Chiefs add another Lombardi trophy, that debate, much like Caitlin Clark against Angel Reese for the Rookie of the Year or Jordan against LeBron for greatest ever, that debate is over. It's over.
Steve, I want to move on to a different topic. The quarterback that I'm actually most fascinated by this season is Russell Wilson starting over again in Pittsburgh.
Really?
Yeah. Mike Tomlin needs to have playoff success, and Russell Wilson needs to have some playoff success and just a season of success to take the stench off of what happened in Denver and to reinvigorate his career that we thought for sure was on a Hall of Fame trajectory. Do you think Russell Wilson's going to start all 17 games and have a successful season in Pittsburgh?
People accuse you of not being sentimental. Right there, I disagree. That's proof of it. You do have a heart. I'm stunned by this, and no, I don't. I think he is a declining, descending player. And let's go back to that 1 year that we'll never forget, the COVID season. For about the first 6-7 games, he looked like he was on his way to the MVP. He was putting up unprecedented numbers, and I'm thinking, wow, this guy's just getting better and better. From right around that point of that season till now, it's been a steady downgrade. And I know people are going to point to the numbers last year that cosmetically look good under Coach Payton. But if you look at the breakdowns and people that know much more football than me, Russell Wilson no longer pulls the trigger on intermediate pass plays, and he actually leaves a lot of yards on the table, which frustrated Payton. That's why they basically said, take a break, get out of here, you're done. Because if you actually watch the All-22 and understand what they're trying to do, he no longer, I don't know if it's a confidence thing, I don't know if it's psychological, he is not throwing the ball on time in the intermediate game, which should really be the meat and potatoes of any pro pass offense. And he looks a little bit gun shy. There's been an erosion of athleticism. And from what I've seen of the preseason, and again, I get it, Jason, it's only August. He's not showing me things where I say, you know what, he still has it. I actually believe this is the beginning of the end of what used to be one of my favorite players.
Well, Mike Tomlin, if it doesn't go well, is Mike Tomlin Teflon and above any criticism if this thing with Russell Wilson doesn't go well?
Well, first of all, he's already a Hall of Famer. There's no doubt about that if you look at his overall run. But, Jason, if they have
Mike
another
Tomlin's already a Hall of Famer.
Yes,
Mike
I do.
Tomlin's what you're saying. Yeah.
Yes, based on his longevity, and he has a Super Bowl, and I believe they've gone to 2. So here's the issue. All good things must come to an end. And even though he's had a remarkable record of staying above water and never having a losing season, he's been there since, I believe, 2008? I mean, that's a long run. And I just get the sense that even a guy like Tomlin, who would be hired within a New York minute if he went out on the free agent coaching market, sometimes you just need a new voice in an organization, and that new voice wants to be in a new organization. And post Ben Roethlisberger, it hasn't been nearly as smooth. Okay, and I get the sense if it's another 8-9 or 9-8 season, if I'm Tomlin, I'm thinking to myself, if I don't have a franchise quarterback that I can hang my hat on for the next 7-8 years, I don't know. Maybe he needs a break, because that is an absolute grind, that NFL job. If you look at the last 4 or 5 years of the Steelers, I hate to say it, and this is a fact, there has not been that much playoff success, Jason.
I think, and I like Mike Tomlin, and so people will take this out of context, But I think he's afraid to go someplace else because if he goes someplace else and doesn't have success, then it's going to be, hey, Pittsburgh's had three head coaches basically in 40 years. And and they've all had incredible success. And so maybe it's the organization and it's not Mike Tomlin. And so that because to me, I would have been trying to get out of Pittsburgh and do something else a year, 2, maybe even 3 years ago. But that organization, wins games because that it's no different than the conversation we had a little bit on Friday. They're like the North Dakota State of pro football. There's a culture there that exists no matter who the head coach is. It's been long established. It's just a winning culture and winning environment. And that's not to diminish Mike Tomlin, but I agree with you. To me, he's young enough. I'd go do it someplace else. And if I were super confident that it was me and not the organization.
And Jason, let's look at the history of the Steelers coaches since Chuck Noll. He hitched his wagon and with the guy he really didn't get along with, Terry Bradshaw, took him to 4 Super Bowls. When Terry Bradshaw's elbow blew out, the last 8-9 years of his reign was not nearly as good because, let's face it, Cliff Stout and Mark Malone and Bubby Brister, they weren't Terry Bradshaw. Bill Cowher, excellent coach, right? His record speaks for himself. But when he did not have a Ben Roethlisberger, even though he went to a Super Bowl with Neil O'Donnell, they hit a couple of rough patches when the league figured out Cordell Stewart, and then they invested into Big Ben, who then had a glorious Hall of Fame career. There is a direct correlation with most coaches that have successful runs. They're usually with a really good quarterback. There's very few Joe Gibbses out there that in a decade can win 3 Super Bowls with 3 separate guys as the signal caller that did not make the Hall of Fame. And I just really think about it. The Steelers are kind of in a catch-22. They're just good enough to not be bad, and they're not bad enough to actually get a top 10 pick to get your next franchise quarterback. So that is the conundrum that they have, that sometimes you're better off having a 3-14 year. So this way you reset, you completely rebuild, and you get a top 5 pick. And if you hit on a guy, now you have a future.
I got a little something to chime in here with to kind of clarify where you guys are mostly right, but a little wrong. I agree. The Steelers are in a tough spot this year. Russell Wilson is too, because he has Justin Fields behind him. I haven't seen any other quarterback be more pampered and propped up than Justin Fields. Is constantly given this projection that he should be a starting NFL quarterback. So I think that's going to derail Russell. And I also think Russell Wilson will win another Super Bowl. It will not be with the Steelers. This is a one-and-done year. I think Russell Wilson, coming off of the Seahawks, has never had a real major injury. I think it's just a little lull. I think this guy has the characteristics and the QB acumen to get into the right situation next year. Russell Wilson is going to bring you back to the promised land.
Okay.
Wow.
Butter, we've got a 3 to 4 minute penalty here. Comments detrimental to the show.
A Super Bowl.
In what world, Steve, in what world does someone fail in Denver, fail in Pittsburgh, then get at 35, 36 years old, gets another team that could play in a Super Bowl and win another Super Bowl? Comments detrimental to the show. 3 to 4 minute penalty. Turn Butter's mic off.
Joe Flacco, on my way to the penalty box. Joe Flacco, last year. I'm telling you. Who got it? I'll go to the penalty box. Joe Flacco.
Just add another minute to that penalty box for stepping out of bounds. Steve, the guy's crazy here. Go ahead.
Look, can Russell Wilson be a backup and hold a clipboard with a baseball cap on and then basically be a part of a team that wins a Super Bowl? Yeah, I think that's possible. But there's nothing that tells me. Look, there's a reason why the Seahawks, when they made that big trade, which ends up almost, I don't want to say Herschel Walker to Dallas, but it looks very one-sided. I remember when that trade went down, guys, everyone said Pete Carroll is nuts. You don't get rid of franchise quarterbacks. What are they doing? Guess what, guys? Geno Smith, who's a career journeyman, has solidified himself, and there's not that much of a downgrade in Seattle. Meanwhile, Denver, who mortgaged their whole future on this guy, Russell Weirdo, and that's what he became, was so bad, Jason and Butter, don't say anything, they got a coach fired in year one. Now, maybe that's an indictment on Nathaniel Can't-Hackett, but it also says a lot about Russell Wilson and where he is at as a football player. And he's proven to be a very peculiar brand of leadership.
I was just told, and I don't know how I feel about this, but I was just told that the crew here doing a better job than Butter. When I put Butter in the penalty box, they cut his microphone off, which is the proper thing to do. Keep it off. Butter's trying to laugh and giggle. But I do want to enter into the record that Butter tried to use Joe Flacco as his example of a quarterback who rebounded after failure and led a team to near Super Bowl, playoff, whatever. So I do want to enter that in. He's trying to say Russell Wilson would have the Joe Flacco arc. I just don't see it because of his reputation. Sean Payton's given up on him. If Mike Tomlin gives up on him, I just can't see another team going with Russell Wilson. Maybe in some backup situation he gets thrown in late, but I can't see it. But that's what Butter tried to enter into the record while in the penalty box. Great job, guys, putting Butter into the penalty box, and I'll do all the talking for Butter until he comes out of the penalty box. Steve, another situation, and again, I'm mixing a coach with a quarterback, but I think it's appropriate. New York Jets, Los Angeles Chargers. Both of them, last year the Jets were supposed to ride Aaron Rodgers to relevance in the playoffs. Obviously, Aaron Rodgers played 3 snaps, tore his Achilles, didn't play. He's now coming to the Jets back this year. A lot of hopes and aspirations. Chargers, they pick up an old quarterback, great head coach, Jim Harbaugh. They haven't had a lot of success. I think they were 5-12 last year, something like that. Who do you think has a better shot at making it to the playoffs? The Jim Harbaugh-led Chargers or the Aaron Rodgers-led New York Jets?
You know what was a surprising bit of information that I was reminded of as I was doing some research the last couple of weeks on this upcoming football season, Jason? The Jets actually still won like 7 games last year. I mean, it felt like they were a 4-13 teams. They actually scratched out a kind of a respectable record given who they were playing at quarterback. Now, I'm reading some reports from some anonymous agent that Aaron Rodgers is kind of bad for team chemistry. Like, update, read all about it. Aaron Rodgers is a difficult teammate. Okay, it is what it is. We all know what Aaron Rodgers brings to the table. Some of it you have to eat. But if Rodgers is upright and he's a reasonable facsimile of what he has been, let's say 85% of prime A-Rod, with that young defense, I believe that they will go to the playoffs. Now, with that being said, Jim Harbaugh's track record is very, very clear. He will turn around a franchise very quickly. That's what he did in San Francisco. And I still think the most underrated thing he's ever done in his coaching career, it is not winning the national championship at Michigan. It is turning around the career arc of one Alex Smith, who was considered a bust before 2011. And now he has Justin Herbert. And they had the worst coach in the league last year in Brandon Staley. So I think both teams are going to be very difficult outs. But out of those two, I would take the Jets. Jets.
The Jets are in a division with the Patriots, the Bills, and the Miami Dolphins. Chargers in a division with Patrick Mahomes. Who's starting in the Raiders? Aiden O'Connell or Gardner Minshew?
Gardner Minshew. Yeah.
And who am I forgetting? Oh, Denver's starting Bo Nix.
Yeah.
So I actually think Ooh, wow. I actually
it's a
think
tough one.
Justin Herbert and the Chargers have a better path getting the wild card after the Chiefs. They're probably in a better setup. And I think that, look, you left out. Jim Harbaugh got Colin Kaepernick, made him look like a franchise quarterback.
Yeah.
And so he's pretty damn good with quarterbacks. And so I expect Justin Herbert to play at an elite high level. And I would have to lean towards the Chargers. And I know that Jets probably have a better defense. They have other pieces, maybe a better complete roster. Did I read Joey Bosa broke his hand already?
Yeah.
I think he's going to play week 1, but he broke his hand already. Joey Bosa is one of my favorite players that just can't stay healthy, but I heard he's going to play even with the broken hand. I've seen
Jason,
Butter over here. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Steve.
This is amazing. Now you're a Jim Harbaugh homer. It's amazing when he doesn't replace Brady Hoke, how much clarity you have now on one of the elite coaches in all of football. I just want to point that out.
I've always liked him better in the NFL than in the college game. His results speak for themselves. We'll see if they probably
just won a national championship. Whitlock.
Yeah, they probably allow sign stealing in the NFL, so he'll be fine. But I see you over here nodding your head. I'm tempted to let you out of the penalty box. Did you have something you wanted to say, Butter?
Yeah, I do. I've got something very unique.
I'm going to let you early out of the penalty box. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Whitlock. I appreciate that.
Don't make me regret this.
About 12 years ago, I was at the ACM Awards. My band, Trailer Choir, were out in Vegas. And I sat next to Aaron Rodgers and Luke Rodgers, Aaron's brother. And me and Aaron were best friends for at least an hour or so at this show. And right before he left, and this is why I know Aaron Rodgers will have the best season of his career this year, is because
great decision by me. This is actually decent, Butter.
Right as Aaron Rodgers was walking away, he looked back at me. He said, "Butter, I love your style, dude. You got great style." I said, "See you, Aaron." He said, "See you, Butter." And that's when our best friend sort of relationship ended. And that is why this season, Aaron Rodgers, coming off the Achilles, will lead the Jets and will have a better season than Mr. Justin Herbert.
And this is why I am the head coach, because I know when to go to players and I know how to motivate players. There was so much pressure on you to deliver something interesting, and you actually did. I'm really loving this penalty box thing. So you were at seriously, this was in Vegas at Country Music Awards?
Yeah, back in my music days, I was at the ACMs. We were playing the after party. ACMs in Vegas.
What's the ACM?
It's the Academy Music Awards. Big to do in country music. And we were performing at the after party, and I was in the audience, and Aaron was there with his brother, as they have stars and musical guests. And I sat next to Aaron Rodgers and his brother. And like I said, we became best friends for about an hour. And
were you able to make eye contact with him? Because he's like 6'2", 6'3". You're, I don't even want to say your height. Did y'all make eye contact? Would he even recognize you? Or he just knows the top of your head?
We saw eye to eye because he can recognize player to player. So that's how it was out there.
Game recognized game.
Yeah.
Butter, nice job. I'm glad I let you out of the penalty box. That's interesting.
Thank you.
Final topic here, Steve, in our NFL preview. Joe Burrow, Deshaun Watson, play in the same division. Joe Burrow's had some injury issues. So has Deshaun Watson. Deshaun Watson's had some other issues. Better season, Joe Burrow or Deshaun Watson?
Jason, this is not only a layup. This is a slam dunk on a Nerf hoop in your room. Come on. This is Burrow. I know Burrow's been a little bit banged up. I get it. He's a little bit of a bleeder now, and he's got to stay healthy. This is easy. It's Burrow. It is Burrow. Look, if you look at Deshaun Watson last year, the Browns were better with Joe Flacco. They were, and I think privately all the receivers, especially David Njoku, would probably tell you, who would you rather have throwing you the football, Flacco or Deshaun Watson? I think it's easy based on the numbers. Flacco is actually pretty effective throwing that ball downfield. And Deshaun Watson, this contract may go down as one of the worst ever based on what Cleveland gave him in what they guaranteed him. There's a lot of pressure on Deshaun Watson not to become a punchline. All I know one thing about Burrow, when Burrow is healthy and he has all his weapons, and I guess Jamar Chase is kind of griping a little bit, all he ever does is put up numbers, and he's already led a team to a Super Bowl that they could have easily won. And he's also been to the playoffs more than once. So this is an easy one. It's Joe Burrow.
I don't know, Steve. They've had problems protecting him.
Yes.
To me, they've never fully figured out the offensive line situation. And look, the most talented, most dominant player on either one of those teams is Myles Garrett.
Okay.
The Cleveland Browns have a serious defense and personnel and surrounding pieces around Deshaun Watson that I think is superior to the Cincinnati Bengals. And so I have questions about Burrow staying healthy and upright behind an offensive line that has struggled, and they've spent money trying to fix it. They've never fixed it. And then I think of what I think Cleveland's defense is going to do. And I still am someone that remembers Deshaun Watson when he was a great quarterback in Houston for a year, year and a half, however long it was, and still think he has that in him. And so, do I think Burrow's a better quarterback? Yes. Do I think durability is a question, availability is a question for Joe Burrow? Yes. Do I think Cleveland has better overall personnel? So I kind of lean towards, Deshaun Watson.
But Jason, let me point this out. There's a reason why Flacco played a lot last year. Watson got banged up. Keep that in mind. Neither guy here is Brett Favre in terms of durability. But when it comes to pure arm talent and being able to slice and dice and deliver the ball with incredible accuracy, especially downfield, I don't think there's any GM or player personnel department head in the National Football League that would tell you that Deshaun Watson is superior to Joe Burrow. That's all I'm saying.
All right, gentlemen, both give me your Super Bowl picks, AFC, NFC, and we'll wrap this up.
Chiefs.
All right, I'll go.
Chiefs, that's out of the AFC. Hold on, who in the NFC? Who's coming out of the NFC? Don't forget about the 49ers.
Yeah, I think it's a Chiefs Brock Purdy moment.
Again.
Yeah, and I think
repeat.
And I think the Chiefs take it. Three-peat. I think it happens.
Steve?
Putting me on the spot here. That actually made my decision. You know what? I'm going to go a little bold here. You know I'm a Dan Campbell guy. I like it. If you learn how to kick a field goal once in a while, I think they might do some things. I'll go with Detroit. I think that's a very young, talented roster put together by Brad Holmes. And you know what? I'm going to go with the chalk. I'm going to stay basic here. Until someone knocks off the heavyweight champion in Kansas City, it's tough to go against the Chiefs. So that's my Super Bowl.
I'm going to say the dumbest prediction out of all of you. And it's me taking a risk here. I do like the Chiefs winning the Super Bowl.
Okay.
I like them playing the Dallas Cowboys in the Super Bowl. It's a crazy prediction. I think Dallas is due. I think Dak is due. Mike McCarthy, but I'm gonna go. I think Dallas's roster is loaded, and so I'm gonna go Dallas, Kansas City, with the Chiefs winning the Super Bowl. Thank you all for listening. Thank you all for joining us on Labor Day. We'll play tomorrow. We'll see you tomorrow.
Nothing in life like freedom. Came like a fighter, striking like a ladder, making all this moves for freedom. I want freedom. No negotiation, my sister, no relation. We all just wanna have freedom. Sitting on a corner, never been alone. I'm breaking my back for freedom. Blessed, we are living, get back. We are receiving, no deceiving. We all wanna be free. We want freedom.